Honkomp and Loren Merkle. They're both certified financial planners. They're both certified financial fiduciaries. And they're both retirement income certified professionals. Chawn is also a CPA. But you know what? Today, I'm giving you guys a new title. Are you ready? I'm ready. I call the shots around here. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, that's nothing new to anybody. You're calling the shots.
Okay, maybe in the podcast just a little bit. I'm calling the shots today because today I want you to be detectives. Have you ever thought of yourself as like a detective, a sleuth of sorts?
A sleuth detective. No, I can't say that I have, but happy to accept the role today.
Good. I'm glad you're ready to play along because we want to have some fun. I mean, who doesn't like a good crime show? Are you guys fans of crime shows? You have a favorite?
You know, I saw that. Go ahead, Chawn.
No, I am. I find that that's the category of movies that I enjoy the most. You know, the drama, the suspense, being, you know, kind of dragged along, trying to figure out the.
What's your favorite?
From an old movie standpoint, I like Shawshank. I wouldn't call that necessarily a crime, but Shawshank Redemption is certainly one. And when that comes on TV, I have a hard time turning that off.
It's a great movie.
You know, again, it's the point of it isn't all crime related, but certainly in prison and the plan and the plot of getting out of prison. But the Fugitive as well. That's another one that when the Fugitive comes on TV, that's one where it'll suck me in. I'll be there watching the entire thing.
Oh yeah. What about you? You got a favorite crime show?
Well, you know, I don't really get into the series like the CSI. My parents love the CSI, and there's like a million of those. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that came to my mind was Young Guns. All right, that's not. That's not a crime show movie.
Yes.
But there is crime that takes place in that movie.
Isn't it kind of like a comedy of sorts, right? They kind of make fun of crime. Isn't it the one with us?
This is Amelia Estevez.
Yes, yeah.
And Charlie Sheen's in the first one. There's Young Guns 1, Young Guns 2. And it's Billy the Kid. Emilio is Billy the Kid.
Okay.
So it's a Western setting, and all kinds of crimes take place. And, you know, it's just entertaining.
That's about perfect for you, though. I kind of see you like history and Westerns.
Yeah. So not a lot of mystery in that show.
I sense maybe he wants to commit crimes, Molly. But
yes, he wants to be a cowboy.
Maybe not solve them. He wants to be on the front end.
I think he really just wants to be a cowboy. But today, he is a retirement planner, as is Chawn Honkomp. So we're going to talk about crime, retirement crimes. So it's just going to be the same formula, kind of CSI. I actually kind of wish your parents were here to walk us through some CSI stuff.
You would have a lot of fun talking to them about CSI.
Yes, we could talk CSI. So it's the same kind of formula. We're going to have a crime, there'll be an investigation, and then, don't worry, a conviction. Because really at the end of the day is where those listening are really going to have some actionable information that they can take and apply to their retirement. Crime number 1. Are you ready?
Ready.
We're ready.
Suspenseful music is playing.
Cue it.
You're walking around. You're walking through life. You're investing. You're putting money away. You're saving for retirement. You're dreaming. And then, dun, 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 you invest in mutual funds. Okay, off the top, guys, that doesn't even sound like a crime.
Well, and more than likely, that you're already invested in mutual funds. So it's not like you're getting to the doorsteps in retirement, and then you open the door and like let all these mutual funds into your portfolio. What people are accustomed to investing in or using for their investment tools, most people are mutual funds. In fact, in your employer plan, you were probably almost mandated to use mutual funds as a part of those investments. If you're working with an advisor, historically, that's what a lot of advisors' go-to investments are mutual funds. And so, yeah, you might be sitting here wondering, why would investing in mutual funds be a crime now that you're on the doorsteps of retirement? Because what a lot of people have told you over the years is that mutual funds are an easy investment. It's hands-off. There's professional management as a part of those mutual funds, and it's an easy way to diversify. So what could be possibly wrong with that?
On the surface, this doesn't look like a crime. It looks like a good investment, but because you are detectives / retirement planners, you do the investigating. You talk to families during the 15-minute retirement checkup calls. You sit down in visits and you talk about their current portfolio. You kind of peel back the layers. And when you start doing that investigating, Chawn, that's when you find the quote-unquote crime of mutual funds.
Yeah, well, one aspect of crime is intent, right? And nobody's intending to commit a crime as we invest in mutual funds. So kind of like you talked about, Loren, is that's really what's accessible to most people as we first start saving. And the employer plans, or as we're younger, that's what we have access to is mutual funds. And there's a lot of goods to them, but there's some bads to them too. And that's what we're focusing on here is, well, what is potentially the crime part of investing in mutual funds? And as we work with families, with the families that get into a later stage of life and we start working with them, now we know that you have more options. We have more options to invest in other than mutual funds. And now it's a matter of, well, what's the purpose of these different strategies and what are the goods and bads to those different strategies? And as we dive further into mutual funds, we can identify some of maybe the cons or those bad components. And some of them are, one of them is fees. All mutual funds out there have a layer of hidden fees. So that what people think they're paying for the investment cost on mutual funds is not the entire picture. When you own mutual funds, you pay for all the trades that take place within mutual funds, and that leads to an additional layer of investment cost and what is often referred to as the hidden layer of fees within mutual funds. So then that might feel like, hey, there's a crime there because you're paying more than what you are aware of. So then it's a matter of identifying these different strategies and opportunities you have to maybe be more efficient and have a lower cost with your different investment vehicles.
So really what it comes down to is the lack of transparency, because each mutual fund comes with a prospectus, and that prospectus will detail out almost everything in that as far as how that mutual fund is constructed. In fact, in that prospectus, there's actually a paragraph that says the fees that are shown that this mutual fund has. So let's say you're an ABC mutual fund, and in the prospectus, it shows you're paying 0.75% in fees. Net operating costs.
And that doesn't sound too bad, right?
That's less than 1%.
Yeah.
On the surface, that's not bad at all. But then the paragraph right below that says what is shown as net operating costs does not include all the fees, primarily transaction expenses. So part of the benefit of the mutual funds is you do have professional management on your team. They're doing the research. They're making trades, buying and selling. That's good. You want that. Wherein lies the disadvantage is when they're buying and selling, that costs money. They pass those costs on to you, and it's not reflected in that prospectus expense. So in this case, with ABC Mutual Fund, you might think you're paying 0.75%, but in reality, with the hidden fees underneath of there, you might be paying 1.25%, 1.5%, and in some extreme cases, we've seen them in excess of 3%.
Okay, cue the crime music there, because that is a lot more than what that you think you're paying, and every penny counts. I don't care what part of your journey you're on, but especially when you're getting ready to spend the money, when you're closer to retirement.
I was recently reading a Kiplinger article, and it was about this. In fact, I probably should have brought it today, because one of the subtitles of this article was "Be Detectives." Let's be detectives and investigate the hidden fees of mutual funds. And they list out the different types of mutual funds, from the management fees, the transaction costs, the fees associated with taxes if it's in a non-IRA type of an account. They list those out, and they said the transactional expenses on average for a small company mutual fund is in excess of 3%. Just the transactional expenses, not including the management fees and the 12B1 fee, all these other fees that are associated with mutual funds. And that is the crime, because you think you're paying 0.75%, which seems reasonable, but in reality, you could be paying way more than that, and it cuts directly into that return that you could be receiving for that investment.
And there's,
I was going to say, a challenging part with these mutual funds is that component of their total cost is variable. So while one year maybe they don't do as many trades as another time period or prior year, so maybe that variable part is low in one year, but you have no idea what it's going to be going forward. So there are a lot of mutual funds out there that have reasonable and low cost, but there's a lot of them that have higher cost. But with that variable component, you don't know. And that's where, again, that's another example of that transparency. Whereas if you're not using that type of vehicle, you do have more transparency, and you're not subject to that unknown layer of expense based on the volume of trades that might take place in a mutual fund.
Yeah, and that's where it boils down for us. If you want to pay 3% on your investment, pay 3%, but at least you should know you're paying 3%. If you're thinking you're paying 0.75%, but you're really paying 3%, then that's a complete disconnect. So the lack of transparency in the fees, but also the lack of transparency in what you actually own. One of the important qualities of creating a recession-resistant portfolio, which means a portfolio that doesn't go down as much as what the markets do. So last year is a prime example. The NASDAQ was down 34%. The S&P 500 was down about 20%. If you were invested in a non-recession resistant portfolio, your portfolio might have been down 20, 25, even 30% last year. Recession resistant means that it'll go down, but not nearly as much as what these markets do when we go through bad times like a year 2022. But in order to create that recession resistant portfolio, you have to be truly diversified. And it is extremely difficult to be truly diversified in a portfolio of mutual funds because you don't really know what it is that you own. Take ABC Mutual Fund. This morning, ABC Mutual Fund might have owned 100 shares of Apple stock. Well, you can't really see that it owned 100 shares of Apple stock, but if it did, how many shares of Apple stock did it own tonight? Because that portfolio manager might have sold 50 of those shares, 25 of those shares, 100 of those shares, or none of the shares. Maybe you still own the 100 shares of Apple. But if you want to create a diversified portfolio and you have 10 different mutual funds with different managers doing different things, none of them communicating together, then how do you know that you're truly diversified? And in fact, most people who have a portfolio of just mutual funds end up not being as diversified as they think they are because there is no communication or interconnection amongst those different mutual funds to create their portfolio.
Right, because you could have Apple in ABC Mutual Fund, then have it in an EFG Mutual Fund, and then have it in JK. I'm trying to do the alphabet in threes. Here, you know what
all the letters.
You could have Apple in all of those,
Absolutely.
and one of the managers could be selling it at the same time another manager is buying it, and you're paying for the transaction costs. You may have the same amount of Apple at the end of the day.
That's exactly it. And it doesn't add to that diversification. You're just paying those transaction costs for all the buys and sells of that particular share. And one particular mutual fund may have 1,000 different companies, may have 50 different companies, all dependent upon how that mutual fund is built. Again, that's a level of transparency that not too many people are privy to, and that therefore the portfolio that they actually have can be significantly different than what you think you have.
And I know a lot of people out there are challenged to go out there and make these investment decisions themselves, just going out and picking a certain number of mutual funds. And most people, if that's a challenge to them, they don't want to go an extra layer, then have to dive into each of those mutual funds to look at these positions, maybe to go see the top 10 holdings or to go see all 100 or 500 or 1,000 positions. That's that much more work. So the average person out there doesn't want to do that. That can take a lot of time. So it's just, again, you don't have as much transparency, and it takes that much more work when you own mutual funds. And then Loren, you mentioned a certain mutual fund could have 1,000 holdings. Well, that's going to lead to more transactions, which can then drive up that variable cost. So there's a lot of factors of mutual funds that then can just lead to that less transparent investment portfolio.
I'm sure someone listening is thinking, well, I've got mutual funds. What do I own? What am I paying in fees? And the good news is you can find out, and you don't necessarily have to be able to pull the hood back yourself or read the entire prospectus. That is part of the process that you guys take people through when you're either first, meeting with them or talking to them.
It's part of the process that we take them through because it's important for everybody at the table to understand, are you truly diversified? Are there some opportunities in your portfolio to increase that diversification? And certainly, are there opportunities in your portfolio to decrease your overall investment costs? That's something that almost everybody is interested to find out. Can't you save money, get a better product, a better portfolio, and save money at the same time? That is a win, win, win. We understand why people use mutual funds because in the 90s, 80s, 70s, right? That's primarily, unless you wanted to pay a broker or do it yourself to buy individual stocks, mutual funds was the go-to investment to do that, have the professional management, and create diversification. So that's what everybody's used to. But technology has advanced to the point where there are so many different investment options that you can use out there now to create diversification, have more transparency, decrease your fees, and create a truly diversified portfolio that mutual funds are no longer needed like they once were. And there probably will be a point in time in the near to midterm future where mutual funds don't exist anymore because of the headaches and the problems, the deficiencies that are involved with them.
Are you saying like mutual funds are behind bars, kind of like crime,
Oh my.
investigation, conviction.
Lock them away.
I'm just really leaning into the concept today. So I think you guys did a really good job with the investigation there. I understand why mutual funds aren't right for everybody as they move kind of to and through retirement. So let's talk a little bit about the quote unquote conviction or conclusion, because people are wondering, okay, I've been investing in mutual funds. If I do get out of them, then what do I do?
Yeah, and part of this is what got you there doesn't necessarily get you to the next phase. So what got you to retirement, if that's mutual funds, because that's all you had to choose from with your employer plan, or that's what your advisor was doing, that does not mean that's what you have to use going to and through retirement. So the conclusion is that you need to have a good understanding of what it is you own. If you're working with an advisor, that advisor should also have a really good understanding of what it is you own, because that's the only way you're going to be truly diversified. Mutual funds can work, but is it the optimal? Most likely not. So just evaluate the different options that you do have to use. There's a lot more out there than what you've ever had, and then make sure you come up with the right plan for you to get you to and through retirement, which is what the stated goal is.
And don't feel bad about owning mutual funds. It's possible that 100% of us are going to be invested in mutual funds at some point, because again, it comes down to access. What do you have access to within your employer plans? And that's where it's important to have that information. Know when you are able to consider, different investment options, whether it's at age 59 and a half or when you have job changes. There's different aspects or, points in time throughout your career where now you have an opportunity to move away from that investment lineup and do other things.
I'm hearing you guys say the word information a lot. So getting information, asking questions, diving into your retirement, it's easier to do than you think. You can schedule a 15-minute retirement checkup call right now. You can talk about your investments. You can talk about any of the aspects of retirement that are on your mind. You can schedule your 15-minute retirement checkup call by going to merkleretire.com. That's MERKLE retire.com. That link is also going to be in the show notes. Ready for our next crime, detectives?
Let's investigate.
Let's do it.
Crime number 2. Oh, I know you guys do not like this crime. This is a crime that you both detest, because the crime is paying too much in taxes.
With this crime, we're talking about lifelong penalties here. Lifelong sentence.
Life sentence.
For the tax bill. And the way we frame this is we call it the retirement tax bill. A lot of people are used to paying taxes. You probably pay taxes your entire career. When you make money, when you earn money from your employer, you pay taxes on it. So in retirement, you just think, well, taxes is a part of the game, especially if you've been contributing to an employer plan where you have not had to pay taxes on that money you put into the employer plan. At some point down the road when you take it out, you're going to be taxed on that. Well, what a lot of people find out as they go into retirement and they create their retirement plan is in fact, you actually may have more control over the tax bill that you pay in retirement than what you ever had when you were working. Because when you were working, if you wanted to pay less in taxes, then that means you had to earn less. And that's not a goal of most people who are working. But in retirement, if you create tax diversification, now you have a whole lot more opportunities to construct an intentional income plan that works with your tax plan to control that retirement tax bill.
Well, I've heard you guys say this before, kind of the saver's penalty too. That feels like a crime. So a lot of people do a good job, Chawn, of putting money into their 401k, putting money into their IRA, and then they think, okay, I've got X amount, I'm feeling good, and then they forget or they don't realize that all of that money can be taxable in retirement if you don't have kind of a long-term tax strategy.
It is one of the complaints we're going to have later in life, no matter what your picture looks like. It's something, as we get into retirement, you complain about the weather and you complain about taxes. And nobody's ever going to feel good about what that tax bill looks like. Whether you talk about the savers, Molly, people that have a really strong plan and have saved intentionally throughout their life. And if they've primarily used that pre-tax options that have been available to them, then at some point in their cycle of working and getting closer to retirement, they start getting more information. Then they realize, like, wait a minute, I still have the IRS. I still have Uncle Sam as my business partner on all of these balances. And then people start waking up and going, well, what have I done? Could I have done different things differently? What can I do now? So that's where the value of having that long-term tax plan comes into play. It's about it's not just about what you have saved in total. It's about what you get to keep and what you get to spend. And I scratch my head a lot, wonder why we aren't doing this sooner. And I think about my own path. You know, I was a CPA, right? I became a CPA right at the time of graduating from college. My first career was at a public accounting firm. So you would think if any environment was going to have that long-term tax plan, that would probably be the environment. And I spent about 5 years there, and I do not recall one time having a conversation with, the partners of the accounting firm about having that tax plan, that long-term tax plan, and whether or not I should be using Roth vehicles. And does it make sense to just continue to save pre-tax? Because that's the mindset we have. It's that whole defer mentality of, win the year as much as you can. Defer as much of your tax bill right now as you can, show the lowest amount of income right now, and worry about the future in the future. And that isn't always the right strategy. Not one approach or strategy is going to work for everybody forever. So it's about having that information, knowing what the tax environment is now, what it could be in the future, knowing what your plan looks like now, what your plan looks like in the future. And Loren, like you talked about, it's that life sentence, it's that long-term tax plan. Let's use that long-term tax plan to make the best decisions possible in the current year that we're in to put you in the best position long-term.
One of the family members that we worked with recently had me talk with his CPA. And the conversation went something like this. The CPA was not happy. He was a little grumpy. You could tell he was really old school, probably had a few years left from retirement. And his conversation to me is, and I'm going to censor this, but why?
Darn it.
Jack can censor it later if you want to just let it rip right now.
He's like, why in the world would you have, let's call him Bob, why in the world would you have Bob do a Roth conversion and pay more tax this year than what he has to? And he said a lot of other things, but that was in essence the question. In it's no fault of his. What he is paid, what Bob is paying him to do is to file his taxes, and then hopefully if he can save him any tax this year, he wants to save him a tax bill this year. And the CPA is not privy to all of the assets and the long-term plan, where when we build out that plan, we're looking at this year, next year, the following year, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And so my answer back to the CPA is, yes, I understand that. However, if he does not do the Roth conversions and pay 12% in taxes this year on those conversions, then once he gets to his age 73, he's going to be mandated to take distributions from this pile of money he's never had to pay taxes on before. And now that's going to indefinitely push him into that 22 tax bracket. So, Mr. CPA, we would much rather pay 12% on this money now, have a much longer time frame to have that money grow tax-free underneath the Roth, as opposed to allowing it to continue to grow tax-deferred, take it out and pay 22% on this pile of money indefinitely, basically for the rest of the retirement until he passes away, because there's no way Bob's going through all this money. So Bob passes away. Now he sends this money to his kids. His kids are probably going to be in their highest wage earning years, which means they're going to have to take all of this money out within a 10-year period of time, pile that onto their earned income, which could push them into whatever tax rate that they're going to be in based on all their income. So after that conversation, he settled down a little bit. I'm not sure he still agreed, okay. And he was definitely felt a little hurt because the plan made sense. It was logical, but he still couldn't see it. And I think that's also part of the power of these tax plans. When we're saying, Bob, it is actually a better idea for you to pay whatever that number is, $5,000 more in tax this year than what you need to, because you're going to save tens of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax over the course of your retirement. Well, that makes a lot of sense, but just asking them to pay more on the surface for a lot of people, unless you can actually see that, it hurts a lot.
Chawn, I have to stop you because we're detectives. That's like the aha moment in the crime show. That's where the whole thing gets unveiled. The investigation shows who did it, and it was the CPA. How do you feel about that?
Wait a minute. Was that the conclusion?
It's been fun, guys. I'm going to stage left. I'm going to be out the door now because I am a CPA, but I don't know how to take this.
Yeah, no, it's not actually the CPA's fault. It's just two different professions looking at two different things. And in what we do, we will work a lot of times hand in hand with the CPA. because the CPA is privy to information that we're not necessarily privy to. So the best outcome for Bob is for the CPA and us to work together to say, here's how we control taxes this year. Here's what it looks like long term. Let's put all the strategies together to make sure that everything is looked at and nothing is overlooked.
Oh,
And
he's a good detective.
A great summary of that whole story and that example is that tax preparation is not the same as, or what's that symbol not equal to? Tax preparation is not equal to tax planning. They are much different. That's a conversation we have a lot with the families we work with, because one of our 6 components is the tax plan. And sometimes we'll hear that, well, we have a CPA, so we're good there. And that's not really that's not really the same. That's not really what that is. So we'll have further conversation around that the tax preparer, which is a lot of times a CPA, or just a tax preparer, their job is to compile and file, right? Gather all the information, that snapshot of what the year looked like, and file your tax return for you. And that's often where they try to minimize your tax bill, because that feels good, right? You're paying that person to file your tax return, and it feels good when they can tell you that, hey, you're getting a refund, or your tax liability was a little less this year than last year. But that's not what tax planning is. So, Loren, to your point, we'll often work with the CPAs of our families and when the need is there. Because tax preparation is different than tax planning. We want to be proactive. That's an aspect of the tax planning. We want to have that long-term plan so that during the year, we want to do things that make sense and help the long-term tax plan. We want to be proactive. Whereas the tax preparer, their job is to be reactive and file that tax return for you after the year's over.
See, Molly, we're all in agreement. The CPA is a part of the detective team, not the criminal. The criminal, actually, who should be thrown behind bars is that retirement tax bill. And that retirement tax bill can add up in a hurry. In one way, if you're not engaged in intentional tax planning, one way to just estimate what your retirement tax bill could be for you is if you have $1 million IRA and you project out over the course of a 25-year retirement, then you could pay in federal and state taxes somewhere around $500,000 just in taxes. So that is the opportunity that most pre-retirees and retirees have if you incorporate intentional tax planning. And ideally, you'd have your CPA and your retirement planner working on the same team on the other side of the bars with the keys, trying to unlock this retirement tax bill and or I guess locking them away. You're much better at the analogy, Molly. Locking them away forever.
Okay, I got it. I'm going to sum it up like this. The crime is paying too much in taxes. The investigation, the detectives here have revealed that you have more control over taxes than you think in retirement. And the conclusion or the conviction is arrest the old way of thinking. Think about taxes long term. Did I sum it up right?
You nailed it.
Sounds great.
Let's move on to crime number 3. And I know you guys think this is a crime because this is what you help people do every day. But we know, I've read study after study that say something like 50 to 60% of people go into retirement without working with a financial professional. So the crime that we're looking at here is no retirement plan. And guys, outline why this is a crime.
It's a crime because you think about this is the ultimate goal of life, is to get into these golden years and make it to retirement and go out and sail off into the sunset, be able to do whatever we want. And with all these moving pieces, we've just covered a few of these crimes today. There's lots of other crimes out there I think we could talk about, but there's so many moving pieces that without a plan, it can feel very overwhelming on whether or not you feel like you're doing the right things. We just started working with a family here in the last month, and the reason they came to us was that the husband had said that he was at a wedding recently, and the father of the bride was a few years into retirement, and they got talking at the reception, and he told him the couple that we're working with is a few years away from retirement, but the older individual at the wedding told him the best thing he did leading into retirement was to hire a financial planner. And that really got him to take action and reach out to us. And now this is a couple and a family that we're working with. And his big takeaway there was that there are so many things that you've never had to answer before. Loren, you said it before. What got you to the pre-retirement stage of life? Those same actions and decisions are not what are going to get you through retirement, because there's so many new things that you're going to have to answer for the first time. And some of these decisions are one-time decisions. You're going to want to feel really confident that you're getting them right. And some of these decisions are going to be continuous throughout your retirement journey. So without that plan, it can feel overwhelming, and you shouldn't hit the stage of life and not have the confidence that you can have if you have a plan.
There's two hurdles that we consistently see that people have to overcome in order to get that plan. One is to have a true understanding of what a plan is, because what we've always been taught is the plan, our retirement plan, what's going to get us to be able to retire one day is our investments, our 401ks, our IRAs, our qualified, non-qualified accounts, our 529 plans for our kids and grandkids. That's what's going to enable us to give up work and enjoy the golden years of our retirement. But then you get to the doorsteps of retirement, and you do have to encounter all of these types of decisions you've never had to encounter before. What do you do with Social Security? You may have up to 81 different options when it comes to Social Security. What do you do with Medicare? You have way more options when it comes to Medicare, and it's not a one and done. You have to decide each and every year, do you want to stick with the plan, change the plan, and legislation changes all the time. What do you do from a tax planning standpoint? When you have your last day, how does everything that's left over transition the most efficient way to your surviving spouse, kids, charities, other loved ones? All of these things that you've really never had to decide before, and you kind of have to do it all at once. So one, what is a plan? And then two, because there is so much that goes into it, once you discover what that is where do you start? How do you get started? And that could be hurdle number one, because it's
or when to start,
just seems
too.
So massive. Yeah, and
where to start, when to start. Do I need to? Is a year out too not? But you know what I'm trying to say.
All things starting.
Timeline. The timeline. That's what I'm looking at. That word.
Words should be the criminal.
Yeah. Well, sometimes detectives mess up their words.
And it's step one. That's often what we hear about, is if you can get going and take step one, that's going to get you in a better spot of finding out more about what it means to have a retirement plan. But it's the old analogy of failure to plan is planning to fail. Molly, I think you've shared this before, that people are more likely to spend more time planning a 1-week vacation than they are to plan for their potential permanent vacation, which is what we call retirement. And I wonder if some of that is because we know what a vacation is, right? You've done vacations before, so you can go plan for that. And Loren, to your point of people don't necessarily know what a retirement plan is, so how the heck do you plan for retirement when you've never done it before? You've never had a retirement plan before, and it can feel overwhelming, which sometimes puts a roadblock or a hurdle in front of people and prevents them from ever starting and taking action.
I think that's part of the reason the families that we work with, the families and individuals, they really appreciate our process, because it does take the heavy lifting off of their shoulders. It is an easy process. It's an educational process at the same time. So they're learning about all things retirement that's custom to them. What do they have to worry about? Let's put away all the things they don't have to worry about. Let's focus on them, the concerns that they have, the investments that they have, the income that they need, the longevity expectations particular to them. Let's focus on all the things give them the information that they need to help them make these important decisions, because this retirement transition is probably one of the most pivotal transitions that they will ever have to make. Most people want to do retirement once, which makes it permanent. They don't want to have redos on retirement, and a lot of these decisions are permanent. And so you want to make sure that you are making the best decisions for you as you can, so you don't have to think 5 years from now, think back and be like, I wish I would have. I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have made this decision.
And Loren, I was going to say, I think one of the greatest things we get to experience with what we do is when we help families, they get that plan in place, and we see all the time where an individual, or maybe both husband and wife of a couple, they are able to make that retirement decision sooner than what they were thinking. Yeah. And that does bring a lot of joy. I mean, there's always uncertainty in front of us. Whether you have a plan or not, there's still uncertainty in front of us. But that plan's going to help, lower that risk and just give you more information to help you feel more confident about these numerous decisions we're going to face. But when people feel better, they feel more confident in making that retirement decision. And because we see the other side of it, where some people just don't know. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know if they're ready, so they just keep working. And we always hear from people, nobody's going to hit your 80s and 90s and look back and go, geez, I wish I would have worked one more year. Right. Or I wish I would have worked 3 or 5 more years. So when we can see these families retire sooner than what they had in their mind because of the vision and the picture that this plan paints for them, that's a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, how much fun are those conversations where we talk to somebody for the first time, we say, when do you want to retire? And they say, well, 65. And then we ask more questions. Well, what would make you want to retire at 65? And it turns out, well, I don't want to retire at 65. I think I have to retire at 65 because I can't afford health care prior to Medicare. But then we put the plan together. and we include the healthcare plan with the income plan and the tax plan and the legacy plan. And then we can show them how they can actually retire 2 full years earlier than what they thought and still afford the health care and the income for the travels and the grandkids' gifts and all this kind of stuff. That is a fun conversation, and it's really fun just to sit on the other side of the table, and as they're watching what their retirement could look like from a financial standpoint, in their mind they're envisioning not the financial part, they're envisioning the fun part. They don't have to drive to work Monday at the age of 63. And they can go hang out with their grandkids, or they can go to Disney World, or they can do all these fun things and not have to worry about it. And there's a very high probability that they will never have to work again all the way out to age 100. That is a fun conversation.
Well, and we've touched on, you and I touched on maybe our side of the table and the experience, and we talked about the fun and the joy, but how many times have we, through the families we're working with, Loren, that we've seen the emotion on their side? I know we've each been in a number of visits where there are tears. It's because of that emotion, that experience of being able to realize their dreams, of making that retirement decision, very confidently. I mean, it's a huge part of life, and it's something that, again, it's very rewarding for us to be able to experience that with the families that we work with. I just met with a couple this week, and he's a business owner. That's been a big part of his life, and he's at that step where he's selling his business. And his wife has had some health issues, and their biggest thing was there's so many factors why it's time to sell this business. And it's meaningful for him. It's going to be hard for him to not have that, be the business owner. But the thing they kept talking about is, hey, we have a number of vacations scheduled for the next 12 months. And it's a matter of being able to enjoy that time while we're healthier, while we're younger. And we all know we have health risks. Our health can change. We're all one blood draw away from having a different outlook on life. So being able to see the emotion that our families have, it's really powerful for what we're able to provide to them with the information we can give them, and that comfort, that confidence, that clarity that having a retirement plan provides for them.
And while I think that you are 2 of the best retirement planners in the entire country,
sweet Molly.
Yes, I really do.
Very sweet.
There is data to back this up. I mean, you guys are giving anecdotal evidence and people you've sat down with, but there's a lot of data out there. It doesn't take much of a Google search to find that people who engage with a professional feel more confident and secure as they head to and through retirement. And then there's even some more data that I'm hesitant to kind of give numbers, but there's even, if you're into like portfolios and how they do when they work with professionals, how the returns can be higher. So this data is out there, this data exists, and this data does point to the fact that people with a plan generally do better, not only in retirement planning, but do better in life.
Not only is the empirical outcome much better, but you feel better about it as well. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits. If you can make these decisions and you can make them with confidence instead of making the decision, because you're going to have to make that Social Security decision regardless. So instead of making that decision and hoping that it works out, you make that decision knowing why you made it, not because your brother said that he took his at 62 or your coworker said you should wait till 70, but because you know it's right for you. That is a game changer. You make better decisions. You feel better about it. Enjoy more of your free time.
And every good crime story has a happy ending, right? They get the bad guy at the end.
Well, Young Guns was kind of indifferent. I don't know if it was happy.
Shawshank, they
he
break
escaped
out
and spent his retirement on an island with the sunset, and they reunite as friends.
I'm thinking more of CSI because I always catch the end of it right before the 10 o'clock news. This speaks to my life routine, which I'm not sure what it says.
You should invite my parents.
Yeah, I was gonna say, your parents and I have the same routine. So it seems like they're always at the dinner table and they're pouring wine and they toast to each other because they put another bad guy behind bars. So that's how we'll kind of ceremoniously. Where's the toast?
Perfect.
Where's the wine? Where's the dinner feast? But I think what we did with that when we identified the crime was not having a plan. It's a crime because you're hoping things work out. That's a crime as you head through retirement. You've worked too hard. You've saved too hard for that. And then I'm going to call the conviction locking up the idea that a plan is only for the wealthy, or a plan is just not something that you can contain. Because I want people that are listening to this to know that you guys work with people who have varying amounts of money saved up in varying types of accounts. And it's not just the wealthy or those who are inheriting. It's everyday people who have saved into their 401k or have a pension plan that can obtain, this kind of happiness.
If you want to retire and you want to make that transition the easiest you can and have the highest level of confidence, you need a plan.
So where to get started? That's one of the hard parts. Here's an idea. It's a 15-minute retirement checkup call. So you get to talk with a retirement planner about what's on your mind. You can schedule a 15-minute retirement checkup call by going to merkleretire.com. That's MERKLE retire.com. Or use the link inside the show notes. There's a calendar. You can choose a time and a date that works for you, and it's a good way to get going on your retirement journey. We will continue talking about all of the aspects of retirement on this podcast. It's Retiring Today, and we thank you for listening. Merkle Retirement Planning is an independent financial services firm helping individuals create retirement strategies using a variety of investments and insurance products to custom suit their goals and objectives. Any information discussed in these shows is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Elite Retirement Planning LLC. Insurance services are offered through MRP Insurance LLC.